And of course we need yeast. So we're using a yeast that's particularly formulated just for pizza dough. And what's neat about this is that there's no kneading and there is no rising time. You can simply mix everything together and you're good to go with dough. Did I make a poem? I think I did. So the first thing we want to do is open up these packages of yeast. And because I have so much flour today, I'm going to use 2 packages of yeast. So that's 2 1/4 teaspoons per packet. So we want 2 packages of this particular yeast formulated specifically for pizza. And you can find this in your grocery store. I use a lot of yeast, so when I buy it in bulk, and then I keep it in the refrigerator or in the freezer. So our yeast is in, and now we need some salt. So a teaspoon of salt for this, teaspoon and a half if you like it a little saltier. So a teaspoon of salt. And then we need water. And for this you want warm water. So something that's around 110, 115. Use a instant read thermometer to help you find out how hot that water is, because really hot water will kill yeast. So we're going to put the water in. I'm going to start with 2 cups. I'm not quite sure how much water I'm going to need, but there are 2 cups. And because yeast just loves to feed on sugars, I'm going to add some honey. This is going to give some nice flavor to the dough. So 2 tablespoons of honey should do it. And the other thing that's going to help this dough is olive oil. Olive oil helps everything, doesn't it? So you want a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And that's all there is to really making this dough. So this could be considered a master dough. You could use it for all kinds of pizza. So there is our mixture. So now what we want to do is get this all mixed. So you want to start on low speed and let it go. I ought to put the handle up first. Okay, there we go. Now we want to get that mixed. Try not to get yourself all sloppy. If I was doing this by hand, I'd really have to work it really, really well. So that's good. I'm going to let this down, take down my dough hook, and take this out onto my board. I like to work on a wood board. Don't work on a shiny surface because then you have no grab. So a wood board is the best way to go. So you can see by the amount of dough that I have here today that we're going to be making some really interesting pizza. So we're going to just knead this a little bit because we really don't have to do anything to it, but I'm so used to kneading that this just comes natural to me. So once you have your dough, you can just set it aside. And I'll talk to you about the toppings for this. You're going to cook these down in a frying pan. So you cut up your onion and you add it to your pan with some olive oil and some butter. So I have olive oil and I have butter in there. And we want to cook that down until they look like this. We added some wine and we added some vinegar. And you let them cook until all of that wine and the vinegar has been absorbed and the onions look very glazed. Once they're like that, you want to let them cool down. So I'm going to take them out into a bowl and just set them aside. I just think this is a really tasty pizza. Dried figs, you can buy them anywhere in the grocery store. You could use mission figs, Calamina figs, whatever type of fig you want. And you want to take that stem top off. You see the stem there? And I just do that with a scissors. Just cut the stem right off. And then I cut the figs in half and I soak them in water. So they're soaking in water here. And now I want to drain them. I want to drain these figs and I'm going to drain them right over the sink. And we're going to put these in a pan right here. I'm going to put them in a small pan and we're going to cook them down with some wine. So you want enough wine just to cover those figs. And you soak them first because they're a bit hard, so you really want to get them going. And with this, I like to add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. you know, the stuff that you put on salads. So a little balsamic vinegar, about 1/4 of a cup. Put in a cup of wine and about 1/4 of a cup of the balsamic. So you get this heated and you let it cook over medium heat. Just let it cook until all of that liquid is absorbed, and you want to leave the cover off. When they are cooked, they're going to look like that. You see how much wine has been absorbed? And then we want to make this into a paste. So before I do the dough, I want to show you how that goes. And I do that in a food processor. Got a lot of equipment in the kitchen today. So here's my food processor. Put the blade in, and we take all of these figs, we put them right in here. Just like that. Easy to do. And then get the top on. Turn this way so I can see what I'm doing. I knew this went on this way. I don't know how many times I've used this thing. Okay, there it goes. Now, get these all into a paste. Very pasty. If it's too thick, you could add a little wine just to thin it down a little bit. That looks good. Now you're kind of getting the idea why I'm calling this a dessert pizza, because it's going to be kind of sweet tasting. And now there's no rolling with this at all. This is all done by patting it out with your hands. And I'll show you how that goes. I usually have a bowl of water handy, just to wet my hands. And then you take that dough and you just pat it out. I don't like to use a rolling pin for this, because if you do, you eliminate all those nice air bubbles. So this particular dough is going to get done on a piece of parchment paper. I like using parchment paper. I consider that a baker's best friend. And as I've been telling you, if you've been watching this, that you can find parchment paper in your grocery store. And if you're not used to working with it and you find that it's just too sticky, you could add a little flour right to the paper. Add a little flour just on the bottom, and then put your dough on top, and that'll help you spread the dough out. So get it as thin as you like it. If you want to make it thinner, you can. But in Italy, pizzas are eaten at dinner plate size. If you get a little hole, you patch. You just keep spreading, and you see how easy that is to do. So I could stand here forever and just stretch this, but I think you get the idea. So there is our first shell. Now, we're going to add those onions. So I want to just make sure I have a good stretch on the side there. All right, that's about 9 inches or so. So then we take our onions and we make sure that they are soft and cooled down, and we have our paste. So we're going to add a little bit of this paste right over the top. And I want to spread that out with a spoon. I don't want to make that too thick, because then it would be just too sickeningly sweet. What I want to do is just spread a nice thin layer. So this is so unlike having a tomato and cheese pizza. I know what you're saying. Very unusual, but the sweetness of these figs with the onions, it's an absolutely perfect thing to have with a glass of red wine and some cheese. And we are actually going to add some cheese to this while this is baking. I like a gorgonzola dolce cheese, which is a sweet cheese from Lombardia, blue vein cheese. That looks good. I almost want to lick the bowl. So now the onions, you kind of spread around on the top. Spread them out. Use a spoon or a fork. Isn't this beautiful? I love the colors. And now this is all ready to go, believe it or not. All we need to do is put this in a preheated 425-degree oven. This is going to cook in about 10 minutes or so. Remember, you're making 2 of these, and that's ready to go. 425 degrees. You want to watch this. It's going to take maybe 10 minutes. So that's in there. Just before that comes out, this is what we're going to put on it. You see that wonderful blue vein cheese? That is Gorgonzola, Gorgonzola Dolce. I had a cheese knife here somewhere. There it is. Okay, here's my cheese knife. This is a cheese knife. And this is what you need to cut a soft cheese, you see, because Gorgonzola Dolce is very soft. So we're just going to cut it up into small pieces. And just before that pizza comes out of the oven, we're going to add this to melt the cheese. We don't want to put it in right now because it'll burn. So you have your cheese ready, and when the pizza comes out, just 3 minutes prior, you add the cheese.